Hello everyone. Now we're going to do is we're going to look at how do you find mean if you have that table data that we talked about. So up until now, every way that we've looked at calculating mean has been having the raw data itself. But what if we have data in terms of a table? So in order to find mean when you have table data is you are going to use x bar equals the sum of m times f divided by the sum of f. Now, I don't want you to get confused because now suddenly we're using the term m. M is just a way of writing the midpoint. But you could just as easily have written this as the sum of x times the frequency of x divided by the sum of f. And this is just because what it's going to be is that because we don't know the values within a specific interval, we're going to use the midpoint to represent all of the values within that interval. Now, this bottom part here, the sum of f, is just what? Remember we talked about when we were doing our histograms, this is just going to be our sample size. So you could also rewrite this instead using n. So this could be something like the sum of x times the frequency divided by your sample size n, which is just the sum of your frequencies f. So now let's look at an example. In this table, we have the following are age details for statistics students registered for the course during the spring 2011 semester. We want to estimate the average age of the data. So first things first, let's write down our ages. So we have ages of 17 to 21, 22 to 26, 27 to 31, 32 to 36, and 37 to 41. And then we have our frequency. So our frequencies are going to be 12, 15, 7, 4, and 2. Okay, so now this looks much like when we started doing our histogram. We had table data, we had some intervals. Now notice there is a gap. Of course, if we were doing a histogram, first thing we would want to do is close that gap. But for this one, we don't really care because we're already telling you that we have 12 ages between 17 and 21 years old. And because we're doing age, I'm assuming we're just going to round. If you're 21 and a half, we're going to either say you're 21 or you're 22, depending on how we're judging it. Probably we would round down 21 like we do when we're talking about people's ages. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we can't do any sort of calculation on interval data, right? Because if you're 17 to 21 years old, how old are these 12 people? They could all be 17, they could all be 21, they could be some distribution between them. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume on average they are the midpoint age. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 17 plus 21 and then divide it by 2. So 17 plus 21 is going to give us 38. We divide 38 by 2 and we get 19. Now, much like when we did our histogram, if all of these are equal interval widths, class widths, then we can actually just do a pattern for it, just like we did before. So this midpoint is going to be 24. This one is going to be 29. This one is going to be 34. And this one is going to be 39. So now, if we wanted to find the mean age of all these stat students, we would use this formula here. So we have x bar. What are we solving for? We're solving for the mean. What is my formula? Well, because I have table data, I'm solving for the mean, it is going to be the sum, and I'll use the first one, of the midpoint times the frequency divided by the sum of the frequencies. And then I just have to put this there. So we have 12 times 19 plus 15 times 24 plus 7 times 29 plus 4 times 34 plus 2 times 39 divided by, and now we do the sum of our frequencies. 12, sum of our frequencies. 12 times 15 times 7 times 4 times 2. And let's figure out what this is going to be equal to. So we're going to get 12 times 19 plus 15 times 24 plus 7 times 29 plus 4 times 34 plus 2 times 39. So for our bottom, we get 1,005. And then we're going to add up the frequencies. 12 plus 15 plus 7 plus 4 plus 2. By the way, one real quick correction. I said plus, but I, for some reason, wrote multiplication there. So these should be pluses. This is going to give me a total of 40. So this means that the average age will be 1005 divided by 40, which is equal to 25.125. So this would be the average age of those 40 students that we had in the stats class in 2011. And then if you look at the slide here, you can actually see what we just filled out here. So you'll notice that in this one, we actually filled out another column on the table, which was your frequency times your midpoint. This is actually going to be really useful because later on, when we actually add in another step and we start doing our variation for table data, we're actually going to start with the same table and we're going to expand out to get all the information we would need to do both of these. So now let's look at another example. Now I'm not going to write this one out because it's quite a bit. But example 2, we have work out the estimate for the mean height when the height of 23 people are given in the first two columns of this table. So we have height in centimeters of 101 to 120, 121 to 130, 131 to 140, so on and so forth up to 171 to 190. And then we have our frequency. How many people are that height? So the first group has frequency of 1, second group has frequency of 3, 5, 7, 4, 2, 1. You find the midpoint of each. So the first group, you have 101 plus 120 divided by 2, you get 110.5. And you'll notice that it's 4.5 higher than the lower value. So again, next group, you go up by 4.5, you get a midpoint of 125.5. Next group, you go up by 4.5, you get 135.5. Next group, go up by 5.5, you get 145.5, 155.5, 165.5, and 170. That should be 170. Oh no, the last group has a different width. So be careful about that. Notice the last group, it actually is from 171 to 190. So the others went up by an interval of 9. This one went up by an interval of 19. So this one actually jumps up to, again, you take the average of 171 plus 190 divided by 2, you get 180.5. Then you take each of those frequencies and multiply them by the midpoint. So you get 110.5, 376.5, so on and so forth. And then at the very bottom, you sum up those values. So if you sum up your frequency column and you sum up your x times your frequency column, you will get the two values you need. The one on the far right, the 3,316.5, will be the top of your mean. And then the sum of the frequencies will be the bottom of your mean. And then you get a value of 144.196 for the average height of all these people.
Thank you for watching. To continue learning, click the linked video here for the next lesson. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.